Today we're going to be talking about the epidermis, or the main epithelial layer of my integument system, or of my skin. So we're going to start from the bottom and work our way up. Okay, and that's kind of how the cells themselves also are organized and how they live and how they die. So if I start at the bottom of my tissue, my bottom layer is going to be called the stratum basale. And in the stratum basale, this is where we're going to have living dividing cells and dividing cells. Primarily, when I say these living dividing cells, I'm referring to keratinocytes, or the cells that produce keratin. And that's their whole thing. They're constantly making keratin. They're constantly trying to build up that protein that is going to ultimately protect our body. There are some other cells that we'll see, and they're not really dividing in the same way in that they're going to be moving up the area. So the other two cell types that we're going to see are melanocytes that produce pigment. We'll talk about its pigment in another video. And we're also going to see things like Merkel cells, which are going to play a large role in touch, so sensing what they've touched and felt. These two cells stay in the stratum basale, whereas keratinocytes we're going to see all the way through the rest of the tissue. Right above it, we have the stratum spinosum. Right, and we're going to still have keratinocytes, but they are going to be spindly. And what I mean by spindly is they look, so if you look at a squamous cell, which is what a keratinocyte normally looks like, right? This is a healthy, happy one, right? So healthy and happy, more like what you see in the basal. But because of the fact that it's losing, it doesn't really have nutrients, right? We don't have any blood vessels moving up here, and it's constantly working on producing all this protein, the cell is, for lack of a better term, starting to get more sickly. So when you have a squamous cell and it starts to look a little more sickly, right, the cell looks kind of like an octopus, okay? And so we can say these cells are on their way out. They're not dying, they're not really transitioning, but they are still there. I do want to point out that these cells, when they're spindly, they still can be attached to one another. So it's not like we're losing the attachments that we normally see in epithelial tissues. The cells just themselves do not look as healthy, okay? Up above that, okay, so as these cells are continuing to die, we have the stratum granulosum. And this is kind of a transition phase where we're starting to see dead cells, and we're starting to see these granules of some keratin precursors that are dark and they're easy to see. You can see them on the scope. We know we've got these pockets of protein. And really the big thing here is now we're starting to get that water protection. Okay, so we're starting to get more of that keratin protecting us from water getting into our body, right? We don't want to be absorbing the water that, came from the rain. The next layer is only found in thick skin, okay, and this is the stratum lucidum. And the stratum lucidum is really more to protect from that additional friction. So it's for the additional friction on the hands and on the feet. So on the palms of my hand and the soles of my feet. Okay. And what kind of makes it unique is it does have some, again, more protein production, more protection, right? You can feel that the palms of your hand and the soles of your feet feel differently. And then the last layer we have is the stratum corneum, where the cells are all dead. And we just have keratin, lots and lots of keratin around, to, again, protect our bodies from things like water, getting in, or a pathogen, or what have it, right? Or even just normal damage. With all, if you think about it, like we've got 3 layers of essentially mostly the dead or dying cells, that it's not a big deal if we lose them. That's a lot of protection. And again, this layer, they're sickly, not a ton of again, more protection. The body doesn't need to keep doing much with it. That stratum basal is where all the living, healthy cells are. So we go through 4 layers before we even have to worry about getting to the living cells. But anyway, I hope this helps you guys with studying